Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, MR.Creepy. So today's video is definitely gonna creep you out. In this video, we're getting into 4 real blizzard horror stories where being trapped by the storm was the least dangerous part of the night. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is for you right now. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Alright, let's get into tonight's stories. My name is Daniel. I'm 38. I've spent the last 11 years working as a long-haul freight dispatcher, which means I spend every working hour tracking drivers through ice storms, whiteouts, and road closures that would make most people pull over and cry. I stay calm for a living. I find solutions. I read situations fast, and I act without wasting time. I want you to understand that before I tell you what I missed that night, because it still bothers me that I missed it. It was a Tuesday in February, rural Minnesota, 2 hours outside the Twin Cities. I was heading back from my sister's place after a long weekend. The forecast had set flurries, light accumulation, nothing a truck couldn't handle. By 8:30 p.m., I couldn't see the center line. By 9, I couldn't see the shoulder. The snow was coming sideways, headlights bouncing straight back off it like a white wall, and I made the call to get off the road before I ended up in a ditch. I pulled into a gas station that was already locked up for the night. Pumps still lit, but nobody inside. I sat with the engine running and called my wife. She told me to find somewhere warm. Don't be stubborn, wait it out. I told her I would. That's when I saw the house. It sat across the highway, set back maybe 200 feet from the road. Single story, wood siding gone gray from weather. A truck in the driveway with a plow attachment rusted at the joints. The porch light was off, but the windows were lit from inside. That warm amber kind of light, that means someone is home and awake. I watched it for a minute, told myself it was just asking to sit somewhere dry for an hour. Any reasonable person would open their door for that. I crossed on foot. Snow was already past my shins. The man who answered looked to be in his mid-60s. Big through the chest and shoulders, flannel shirt with the sleeves pushed up past the elbows, which struck me as strange because it was genuinely cold in that entryway with the door open. He had very still eyes, not unfriendly, just still. He said his name was Bert. He looked me over the way you look at something you're trying to size up, not greet. Then he stepped aside. Inside was warm, cluttered kitchen, low ceiling, a wood stove working hard in the corner. He offered coffee without asking if I wanted it, just walked to the counter and started pouring. I sat at the table and made small talk. Roads, the storm, how long he'd lived out here. He answered every question, but there was something wrong with the rhythm of it. He'd wait almost a full beat after I finished speaking before he responded, like he wasn't listening so much as processing, like each answer was a small decision. I told myself he was just a private man. Some people are like that. His phone was on the counter, face up. While we sat there, it lit twice, 2 different times. Both times his eyes went to the screen, then directly to me, then back to the table. He didn't pick it up either time. That sequence stayed in my head. Of the phone, the order, screen, me, away. I asked to use the bathroom. He pointed down the hall. On my way back, I passed a bedroom. The door was open, maybe 4 inches. I wasn't trying to see inside, but the hallway light reached just far enough. There was a woman's boot on the floor, just inside the doorway. One boot, toe pointed toward the door, like it had been stepped out of in a hurry or dropped. No second boot next to it, no coat, no bag, nothing else. Just the one boot pointing at the door like an arrow. I kept walking. I sat back down at the table. He was standing at the counter again, facing away from me, doing something with the coffee I couldn't see. I told him I thought the roads might be possible now, and that I was going to try. He turned around, set something down on the counter slowly, and looked at me with an expression I have never been able to fully describe. Not angry, not panicked. Something quieter than both, like he had made a small adjustment to a plan. You don't want to do that, he said. Roads are worse now than when you came in. I said I'd driven worse. He said she gets lonely out here. She'd like the company. I didn't ask who she was. My coat was on the chair back. I picked it up without standing all the way, took one step toward the door, and he moved. Not fast, just into a position between me and the hallway, not blocking me completely, just enough that getting past him would have required touching him. My hand found the door handle. He said, "You're being rude." Still calm, still quiet, like I declined a second helping at dinner. I opened the door, and the cold hit me like a warm. I walked across that highway faster than I've walked anywhere in my adult life. I didn't run. Running felt like giving him something. I got to my car, locked the doors, and pulled out of that lot with the tires spinning on ice. I drove 11 miles before my hands stopped shaking enough to call my wife back. I reported it the next morning, described the house, the truck, the boot, the way he'd moved to block the hall. The deputy who took my statement nodded at the part about the boot. Not surprised. Not even close to surprised. He said they'd look into it. I searched that area for 2 weeks after. I found a missing persons report filed in January. A woman, 31, last seen in that highway corridor. No follow-up. No update. No resolution. I don't know if it was her boot. I don't know she was in that house when I was sitting at that table drinking his coffee. I don't know what "she gets lonely" means, and I have thought about that sentence every single winter since. What I know is that I don't stop at houses anymore. Not in storms, not in daylight, not for any reason. Only truck stops, rest areas, anywhere with cameras and strangers and light. My wife says I've gotten colder since that night, less willing to help people I don't know. She's probably right. My name is Rene. I'm 31. I work as a forensic accountant, which means I spend my days finding things people try to hide, patterns other people miss, numbers that don't add up. I'm methodical by nature and skeptical by default. I don't spook easily, and I don't jump to conclusions. I need you to understand that, because what I'm about to tell you took me a long time to report. Not because I was scared to, but because I kept trying to find the rational version of it first. I never found one. This happened 2 winters ago in northern Michigan. I was staying alone at a rental cabin for a long weekend. Just me, a work project I needed to finish without distraction, and what the forecast called a manageable winter storm. The cabin was small, 1 bedroom, a living area with a wood stove, a bathroom, and a narrow back hallway that led to a utility door. It was isolated in the way rental listings describe as peaceful and private, meaning the nearest neighbor was 1.5 miles down an unplowed road. I arrived Friday afternoon, unloaded groceries, got the stove going, settled in. The snow started around 8 that evening, light at first, then heavier, then the kind of heavy that makes the whole world go quiet. By 10 p.m, the road I'd come in on had disappeared completely under white. I wasn't worried. I had 4 days of food, the stove was running well, and I had work to do. I went to bed around midnight. I woke up at 2:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone before I moved. The cabin was dark, and the stove had settled to a low burn. The wind outside was working against the walls. But that wasn't what woke me. It was the smell. Cigarette smoke. Faint but specific. The kind that clings to a coat or a collar. Not old smoke baked into the walls. This cabin had been smoke-free. I checked the listing twice because I'm allergic. This was fresh. Present tense smoke. I lay still and fought it through, the way I think through everything. Reasonable explanation first. Maybe the wind was pushing something down the chimney flue. Maybe the previous renter had smoked inside, and it had settled into the furniture. Maybe I was still half asleep, and my brain was constructing something out of nothing. I almost talked myself back to sleep. Then the utility door at the end of the back hallway moved. Not opened, not slammed, just shifted in its frame. The small sound of a door that is closed but is being held closed from the outside, the frame flexing just slightly under pressure. A sound with intention behind it. I sat up. My phone was in my hand already. No signal. 0 bars, which I'd expected this far out. No Wi-Fi calling either. I'd tested it when I arrived. I was completely unreachable. I got out of bed. Slowly. The floorboards in that cabin were old, and I knew which ones were Loud's. I stepped around them without thinking, which tells you something about what my body understood before my brain caught up. I stood in the bedroom doorway and looked down the back hallway. The utility door had a thin rubber seal along the bottom. In the dark, I could just make out the gap where outside light, not light exactly, the dim grey of snow-reflected sky, showed through at the base of the door. Something was standing flush against the outside of that door. I didn't breathe. The door handle moved. Slow. Just a quarter turn, testing the lock, the way you turn a handle when you don't want to make noise. It stopped, held, then released back to center. Silence. Then, right against the door, so close the wood must have been an inch from their mouth. Breathing. Steady and patient. Not labored from the cold. Not panicked. Just breathing the way someone breathes when they are waiting and they are comfortable waiting. My legs went cold from the knee down. Not temperature. Just absence. Like the blood had made a decision and left. I'd backed into the bedroom. I moved the dresser in front of the door with my whole body weight behind it. Slow enough not to make sound. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed, and I watched the bedroom door until the sky outside the window started turning grey. Around 6 a.m. I heard footsteps on the porch. Front porch, unhurried. The sound of someone walking a perimeter they had walked before. Then nothing. When full light came, I looked out the front window. The porch was empty. I loaded my car in 4 minutes and drove out on an unplowed road with the undercarriage scraping the whole way. I didn't care. When I reached town, I went directly to the sheriff's substation and reported it. The deputy drove out that afternoon and called me when he was done. He found boot prints in the snow on the backside of the cabin, coming out at the tree line, stopping directly at the utility door, then circling the building once and returning to the tree line. He said the prints were deep and evenly spaced. Whoever it was had taken their time, was not running, was not rushing. Probably someone sheltering from the storm, he said. Nothing was disturbed. I asked him how long he thought the person had stood at that door. A pause, long enough for the snow to partially fill the prints, he said. So, a while. I thought about that word a lot. A while. Standing at a locked door in a blizzard in the middle of the night, breathing against the wood, not knocking, not calling out, just standing there in the cold, patient and quiet, listening to the same silence I was listening to from the other side. I've rented cabins since then. I'm not going to let one bad night take that from me, but I check the utility doors now before I sleep. I check them twice. I stand in that back hallway and I make sure every lock is thrown and every gap is sealed. And I never ever sleep without something heavy I can move in front of a door. My name is Marcus. I'm 34. I've managed facilities for a mid-size insurance company in Indianapolis for 6 years. I know every floor, every closet, every electrical panel and service corridor in that building. I know which stairwell door sticks in humidity and which elevator runs 2 seconds slow. When something is wrong in that building, I know it before the system does. That's not confidence. That's just 6 years of paying attention. The blizzard hit on a Wednesday night. 14 inches forecast, 22 inches actual. By 4 p.m., the company had sent everyone home. By 6, the roads were closed. I stayed behind to run a final systems check, HVAC, emergency lighting, the server room temperature, standard procedure before a multi-day closure. I'd done it a dozen times. Plan was to finish by 8 and drive home before conditions got worse. I finished my checks. Everything normal. I went to my office on the 3rd floor to grab my bag. That's when I noticed the chair, my desk chair. It was pulled out and angled slightly left. I always push it in flush when I leave, every single time. It's not a habit I chose. It's just something my hands do automatically when I stand up. I've done it for 6 years. The chair was out, angled, positioned like someone had just stood up from it. I stood in the doorway and looked at it. My monitor had a partial thumbprint on the lower right corner of the screen. Not a smear, a print, clean and singular, like someone had touched it to tilt it slightly and see the screen better. My monitor is always centered. It was off by maybe 3 degrees. I set my bag down. I told myself the cleaning crew had been through, that someone had sat down to use an outlet and bumped the chair, that I was tired and reading things into nothing. I walked to my desk and touched the mouse. The screen woke up. It wasn't on screensaver. It wasn't in sleep mode. The session was active, which meant someone had been using the computer recently enough that it hadn't timed out. Our system timeout is set to 8 minutes. Someone had been sitting at my desk within the last 8 minutes. I was alone in the building. I picked up my phone and called the security desk downstairs. No answer. I'd sent the overnight guard home at 4 because the building was closing. I'd done that myself. I walked to the door and looked down the hallway. The third floor was half lit in after-hours mode, every other overhead on, the rest dark. Long alternating strips of light and shadow running the length of the corridor. The elevator at the far end was dark. The stairwell door to my left had its small, rectangular window, backlit from inside. I watched it. The light in the stairwell window shifted. The dim, flat quality of it changed slightly, the way light changes when something moves in front of a source. Then it settled back. Someone was in the stairwell. I went back into my office and locked the door. That's the part I'm not proud of. Not because locking the door was wrong, but because of what I did next. I sat down at my own desk, in the chair that someone had just been sitting in. I don't know why. Something in me refused to stand in the corner of my own office, like I was the one who didn't belong there. I called 911 at 9:46 p.m. The dispatcher told me units were running on emergency calls only. Storm conditions, multiple accidents. She asked if I was in immediate danger. I said I didn't know. She said she'd send someone as soon as possible and told me to stay locked in and stay on the line. I stayed on the line. For 40 minutes, I sat at that desk and listened to my own building. The third floor is not a quiet floor. The HVAC runs through ducts above the drop ceiling. Pipes expand and contract. I know every sound that building makes. That night, I heard something I had never heard before. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate, moving down the corridor outside my office, stopping outside my door. Then nothing. I stared at the door handle. It didn't move, but I could hear breathing through the gap at the base of the door. Slow and even. Not exerted. Patient. I said nothing. I stopped breathing and I listened. Then a voice, low, right against the door. Marcus, my name, said the way someone says it when they already know you're there. No question in it. No uncertainty. Just a statement, dressed up as a word. My whole body went cold in a single second. Not fear exactly. Something more physical, like every nerve ending simultaneously understood something my brain was still catching up to. I hit the emergency alert on my phone. Alarm pulled building wide. Every horn in that building fired at once. The sound was enormous, even through the walls. The breathing stopped. Fast footsteps retreating down the corridor, a stairwell door opening and slamming hard, then the building alarm swallowing everything. Police arrived 22 minutes later. They swept all 6 floors. They found a sleeping bag. 4th floor. In the back corner, an unused conference room that hadn't been assigned to any department in 2 years. The sleeping bag was laid out flat, fully unrolled. There was a backpack next to it, partially unzipped, with food inside, 3 protein bars, a water bottle, a small flashlight. A paperback book, face down like someone had just set it down mid-chapter. Whoever it was had been living there, not hiding for one night, living. The dust pattern on the floor around the sleeping bag had been disturbed over a wide area, the kind of disturbance that takes days, not hours. They had a routine. They knew the building's schedule. They knew when people left and when they'd be alone. They knew my name. Police never identified who it was. The building had no camera coverage on the 4th floor, a gap I personally submitted a work order to fix 8 months earlier that had never been approved. I got it approved the next morning. I still work in that building. Same office, same floor. But I check the 4th floor conference room every Friday before I leave. I don't know what I'm looking for exactly. I just need to know the room is empty before I go home. So far, it always has been. My name is Cora. I'm 29. I've been a licensed paramedic for 4 years, which means I have seen the actual worst of what human beings can do to each other and to themselves. I've worked night shifts in neighborhoods where the dispatcher warns you before you go in. I don't shake easily. I don't panic. I assess. I act. I move. I want you to hold on to that. Because what happened to me that night in a blizzard in central Colorado was the first time in my adult life that I could not make my body move when I told it to. I was alone at my boyfriend's house. He'd flown out to see his family in Portland 2 days before the storm hit. The plan was for me to house sit, water the plants, collect the mail. Simple. The house was a single-story rental on the edge of a small mountain town, the kind of place with one grocery store, one gas station, and roads that closed completely when the weather turned serious. I'd stayed there plenty of times. I knew the house. I knew the sounds it made. The storm arrived Thursday evening. By 9 p.m., the power had flickered twice, and the wind was hitting the north wall hard enough to rattle the window frames. I wasn't worried. I had candles, a full phone charge, 2 days of food. I texted my boyfriend. He texted back. I settled onto the couch with a blanket and a show I'd been meaning to watch and told myself it was practically a snow day. At 11:40 p.m., the power went out completely. Not a flicker, just gone. The television, the refrigerator hum, the little green light on the smoke detector, all of it cut at once. The silence afterward was enormous. Wind and nothing else. I found the candles by phone flashlight, lit 3 of them, and set them on the kitchen counter. The house felt completely different in candlelight, smaller, more specific, shadows behaving differently than electric light shadows do. I decided to go to bed. Nothing else to do. I changed in the bedroom and got under the covers with my phone on the nightstand. The candles were in the kitchen, so the bedroom was fully dark except for the pale gray coming through the curtains, snow light, the way a heavy storm reflects back at itself all night. It was enough to see shapes, enough to see the door, the dresser, the chair in the corner. I closed my eyes. I heard the front door, not opening, not knocking. The sound of the handle being tested, a single slow rotation, the mechanism engaging, stopping against the lock, then releasing. I opened my eyes. I lay completely still and ran through it logically. Wind, old hardware, the door expanding in the cold. I've slept in enough old houses to know they have their own sounds. I told myself that. 20 seconds of silence. Then the back window, the one in the small utility room off the kitchen. A sound like pressure against the glass, deliberate and even, the kind of pressure that tests without breaking. That is a different sound than wind. I sat up. My phone was in my hand. I dialed 911. The call connected, and immediately the dispatcher told me response times were severely delayed. Storm emergency. All units engaged. She told me to stay on the line. Stay inside. Stay quiet. I stayed on the line. I sat in the center of the bed and watched the bedroom door. The house went quiet for 4 full minutes. I counted, then footsteps on the porch, slow, crossing left to right, stopping, then right to left, stopping, then right to left. The sound of someone pacing the length of the porch with patience and no urgency at all. Not someone trying to get in fast. Someone comfortable. Someone with time. The footsteps stopped directly outside the bedroom window. I could see the curtains from the bed. They were thin enough that the gray snow light came through. And standing against that gray, just outside the glass, was a shape, still and tall and close enough to the window that I could see the outline of a shoulder, the angle of a head. Just standing there, looking at the curtain. I did not move. I did not breathe. The shape didn't move either. It just stood there in the blizzard, patient and still, like it had all night. Then a voice. Quiet, conversational, like someone speaking through a door to a person they know is on the other side. Kara, my name. Not shouted, not strained from the cold, just placed, like a key in a lock. My hands went numb. Not from temperature. My phone nearly slipped. I gripped it with both hands and pressed it to my chest so the light from the screen wouldn't show through the curtain. The dispatcher was still on the line. I could hear her breathing. I brought the phone slowly to my ear, whispered that someone was outside my window. She told me to stay exactly where I was. Do not turn on lights. Do not speak again. Help was coming. The shape outside the window didn't move for a long time. Then it did. Slowly. Back the way it came. Footsteps crossing the porch again, then off the porch, then the crunch of snow getting quieter and quieter until the wind took it. I sat in the center of that bed until I saw blue and red lights washing through the curtains. 40 minutes later, I did not move from that spot. Not once. Police found boot prints in the snow encircling the entire house. Front to back, window to window. Every single window. They had walked the full perimeter at least twice, the deputy told me. Probably more. The snow had softened the earlier prints enough to suggest they had been there longer than I had been awake. They had been outside before I went to bed. Walking the house. Checking the windows, learning the layout from the outside, while I sat on the couch, watching television, thinking I was alone. Outside the bedroom window, the prints were deeper than anywhere else. The deputy said that without any expression, just reading from his notes. Deeper, meaning they had stood there longer, meaning that window was not a pass-through. That window was a stop. They found no one, no vehicle, no name. My boyfriend and I ended at least 2 weeks later. He never fully understood why I couldn't stay there anymore. I didn't have the words to explain that it wasn't about the house. It was about the knowledge that someone had studied it, had walked it slowly in a blizzard at midnight, window by window, learning which room had the light, which room had the shadow, which room had me. They knew my name. I have no explanation for that. I've never had one. I still work nights. I still respond to calls in places most people won't go. I'm not afraid of the dark, and I'm not afraid of strangers. But I check every window before I sleep now. Every single one. I stand at each one, and I look out into whatever dark is there, and I make sure the dark is empty. Most nights it is. If these stories got under your skin, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss the next nightmare. Let me know in the comments which story hit hardest, and if you think being stranded somewhere familiar makes you safer. Click now to watch 4 deeply unsettling stories where the most dangerous place was somewhere they'd been 100 times before. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.